right, let's find out what's going on in the global economy. We have Ini John McQuarrie with the details here. I hope she has a gift for me this Christmas. I'm praying.
It's too early, laddie. Christmas is on Thursday, so calm down.
That's why I'm sowing the seed
right now.
Take a chill
pill.
So that you don't say you forgot.
You can keep reminding me until then.
Should I tell you what I want for
I know.
Christmas?
Then it's not a gift.
Well, I can give you a hint.
I don't want.
I'll give you a hint at some point.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Global News segment of Business Morning. And we're starting with expectations for the week. The first one is already out, talking about the British economy. Today, we're expecting the GDP for the third quarter, final estimates from the Office of the National Statistics. And then also for geopolitics, the markets are monitoring the thin liquidity as the U.S. intensifies the blockade on Venezuela, and that's having a spreading effect globally. It's a situation that's being described by analysts as end game strategy. Tomorrow, it's more GDP. Yes, this one is coming up from after the government shut down the United States. That's the first GDP we'll be having. So it's expected to capture part of the impact of that government shutdown from the United States. Also from the United States tomorrow is the consumer confidence, looking for the December reading to gauge how the holiday season and fiscal uncertainty are impacting sentiment. That'll be on Tuesday. Still on Tuesday, coming from Japan, the GDP cabinet is scheduled to release its annual national accounts detail. That will be from Japan tomorrow also. And then we move over to Christmas Eve. Exciting, yeah? Well, we'll be having a jobless claims from the United States on Wednesday. And most global markets, including the New York Stock Exchange, will have an early close. So the holiday begins from Wednesday, Christmas Eve. And most markets, including the New York and the LSE, will have an early close. I believe even here in Nigeria, we normally close at 12 noon for the markets on Wednesday being Christmas Eve. And then on Christmas Day, of course, as expected, markets are closed. Most parts of the world, but Japan will be expecting industrial outputs. Western markets are closed. Japan will release its preliminary industrial production data late on Thursday, Christmas Day. Business Morning will be here. We'll spend Christmas together. And then Boxing Day is another public holiday. Most countries in the world, the markets will remain closed. U.S. markets, however, will return for regular trading. Trading through liquidity, though liquidity is expected to remain very thin. So activities are expected not to be at full swing. However, it's expected that markets in the U.S. would be open, and most markets, even here in Nigeria, would be closed on Boxing Day. But Business Morning will be here to spend the festivities with you. Now, moving to the stories. One of the expectations for the week is the British economy. We saw the data earlier today. It expanded by 0.1%. That's for the third quarter. According to that Office for National Statistics, the growth figure for July to September period was in line with expectations. And the growth for the ONS also revised down the second quarter growth figure to 0.2% from the previously expected 0.3%. The Bank of England last week projected zero GDP growth for the current quarter, that's the fourth quarter, while estimating that the underlying pace of economic expansion remains at approximately 0.2%. And still in the United Kingdom, British consumers put away less in savings in the third quarter as their incomes were squeezed by a £6 billion rise in taxes. The share of disposable incomes saved by households slipped to 9.5% in the 3 months through September from 10.2% in the second quarter. Real household disposable income per head declined 0.8%. That's a drop driven by increases in taxes on income and wealth, and it means living standards haven't grown since the end of last year. And then leaving the United Kingdom now, we see Italian Competition Authority. They've imposed a fine of about £98.6 million on Apple Incorporated, Apple Distribution International Limited, and Apple Italia for abusing their dominant market position. I beg your pardon, the fine is 98.6 million euro. That's the fine that was imposed by the Italian Competition Authority on Apple. The regulatory body, they're stating that Apple violated Article 102 of the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union in the market for supplying platforms to developers for online distribution of applications to iOS users. According to the authority, Apple maintains absolute dominance in this market through its App Store, which serves as the exclusive platform for app distribution to iOS devices. The fine represents the latest regulatory challenge for the technology giant in Europe, where authorities have increasingly scrutinized the business practices of major tech companies. We go to Asia now, where China has moved to slap provisional tariffs ranging from about 21.9% to 42.7% on select dairy products imported from European Union following the conclusion of an anti-subsidy investigation. The duties are set to take effect tomorrow, December the 23rd. Target items including milk powder, butter from the EU exporters, and Beijing's Commerce Ministry said that the probe found evidence that subsidized EU dairy imports had harmed domestic producers, justifying the trade remedies. The move marks a significant escalation in a broader trade dispute between China and the EU, and it follows earlier actions by Beijing against other European imports and comes amid ongoing tensions sparked by bloc's trade measures, including duties on Chinese electric vehicles. Still staying there, More Threats Technology Company Limited. We know More is a Chinese NVIDIA rival. They have unveiled what they say is an answer to NVIDIA Corporation. They unveiled a new line of graphically processing units. They did that over the weekend, ascending their shares higher on Monday. More Threats rose 2% in Shanghai trade, seeing relatively smaller moves in recent sessions in the stock market that logged wild swings following a bumper initial public offering in early December. More, at its Musa Developer Conference, unveiled its new line of GPUs aimed at servicing both artificial intelligence and video game industries. And then close to them in Japan, the Bank of Japan is expected to continue tightening monetary policy, with forecasts suggesting that the central bank could raise its key interest rate to 1.5% during the Governor Kazuo Ude's current term. And a former BOJ board member has said that the BOJ may implement 3 additional rate increases over the next few years, potentially lifting the policy rate to 1.5% by 2028 if economic conditions, including the U.S. growth and domestic inflation trends, support further hikes. And then from there, we go to Malaysia, where consumer price inflation edged up to 1.4% year-on-year in November, according to government data that was released earlier today, reflecting a slight acceleration from October's 1.3% rate. And the consumer price index reached 135.1 points in November, compared with 133.3 points a year earlier, as price increases in sectors such as education, alcoholic beverages, tobacco, and transport, they contributed majorly to the uptick. And despite the rise, the inflation rate came in below market expectations, with economists having forecast a 1.5% increase for the month. And then we go to Russia, where shipments of Russian liquefied natural gas to China surged to record highs in recent months, overtaking Australia as the top supplier after Qatar. This is according to data from the customs. Buyers in China have continued to take more Russian LNG despite geopolitical tensions and Western sanctions, and this reflects shifting patterns in global energy trade. According to customs figures, Russian LNG deliveries to China more than doubled compared to what they had last year, reaching around 1.6 million metric tons in November 2025. And that's a level that positioned Russia ahead of Australia in LNG exports to the Chinese markets. And